Alright, so let's talk about opioids. Let's ask the question, what is happening with Purdue Pharma? Well, the answer to that is a lot. Purdue Pharma is the company which makes Oxycontin, which is a Schedule II controlled substance, meaning that the drug is dangerous and has a very high potential abuse, but it also serves some sort of medical purpose. In this instance, it's a painkiller. To give you some context, other Schedule II drugs are cocaine, opium, and fentanyl, which the drug is pretty potent, we can say, from comparing it to those other more well known drugs. Um, I would also love to bring up that weed, marijuana, is Schedule 1, which insists it's more dangerous and not able to be used as medicine. I don't really want to go into detail with that because it's not about the legalization of marijuana. So let's just ignore that. Anyway, back to the main topic. In general, Purdue Pharma selling Oxycontin wasn't really the main problem and didn't really lead to their downfall, quote unquote. It was just an FDA approved drug and it did act as a painkiller, but that is kind of a problem as well. Painkillers are a double edged sword, so they're very addictive, and a patient can easily become kind of fixated on them, addicted, and their life goes down the drain. So, Purdue Pharma started the opioid crisis. They weren't the only ones participating in it, but they did start it, and a lot of companies followed their business model after. So it was their fault. They the problem they had was fraud, and that's how they got taken down pretty recently. They pled guilty to conspiracy to defraud the US and violate the anti-kickback statute, which basically means they were trying to pay off people they shouldn't have been paying off. They marketed and sold Oxycontin and other opioids to healthcare providers like doctors and pharmacists. And the doctors and pharmacists would overprescribe these drugs because of the bribe. And they would turn these patients into drug abusers. So Purdue knew about this. They knew how addictive their drug was, which is why they wanted the overprescription to get people hooked on it and, of course, make money. Uh, so, yeah, they did this to become the biggest drug dealing operation in the US, one that hid under a corporate pharmaceutical curtain. They lied to the DEA because they did not prevent and actually encouraged the giving of the addictive drugs to addicted people. The kickbacks are the illegal payments that they paid to doctors and other providers that encourage prescribing the drugs. Some poor patient would come in for back pain, let's say. Usually these were working class individuals without much money at all. And the doctor would talk up the benefits of the drug oxycodone, and give them a nice big prescription. And their back pain would disappear, but so would their ability to control themselves. They were addicted to Oxycontin, and the provider was getting too expensive, and they still wanted their zombification. So they would turn to hard drugs like heroin or meth, and that in total turned these towns into wastelands. It invited crime. It invited all of this stuff to a usual working class town. Destroyed a lot of the middle class of the Midwest and even South, especially the Midwest and South, those rural areas. A good example of that was this happened in the 90s, around the time where a lot of coal plants were being shut down in exchange for natural gas. And a lot of these coal miners had suffered drastic injuries, like since they were using dynamite, they would have limbs blown off. They'd have a lot of problems, and Oxycontin was a way to solve them. Then they just get addicted to hard stuff and OD, because once you're addicted to something, you go overboard, because nothing is going to feel as good as an initial high, and then you kill yourself. So Purdue did this, and the Sackler family behind the company Purdue, and that got in trouble very recently, as the criminal proceedings had kind of finished up. This is the federal criminal proceedings, though, for their scamming the DEA. They did agree to pay the largest penalty ever levied against a pharmaceutical manufacturer. Criminal fines of $3.5 billion and $2 billion, in addition for criminal forfeiture. The Sackler family and the executives will not suffer because of this. This is a sad truth. It'll be the employees of the company that will suffer, because the scams they didn't know about and the scams they didn't promote are apparently their faults. Because when a company like that goes over, the captain doesn't go down with the ship. The captain leaves all his crew to go down with it. There are individual grievances against the Purdue company and the Sacklers. There are debtors and there are other personal claims, but those will take a lot of time. Our justice system is not very speedy, which is kind of good, kind of bad. Bad in this case. So, very good example of, I guess one would say, late stage capitalism, where a company has so much power in the government because of their massive amounts of capital, that they can basically control legislation and control the government and able to enslave people. In this instance, it was grave damage that they did, and they had control of legislation and other things so that they wouldn't really have to face many problems. Of course, until people got angry about it, and then that prompted action from the government. But a big part of the tool they used, a big tool they used to hide this was legalized bribery, or lobbying, as some people may say. From 2001 to 2021, they spent about $600,000 per year on their bribery of lawmakers. Lobbying is what they call it. The opioid epidemic ravages communities. The poor individuals, where the hard labor caused them to seek pain relieving drugs and get addicted to these Schedule II drugs. And who pays for it? Not the people that make the decisions. The people that had no idea about the decisions. They lose their job. They lose their money. They lose everything. And the billion-dollar company, they may get some scrapes along the way, but they really aren't phased. I mean, the company will go under, but the executives behind it and the family behind it will not. Yeah, it's a brutal truth, but it's one that we have to live with, and we should seek to change. So that's about it from this rant, I guess you would say. Yeah, see you guys later.